Now he returns. What does he want? With the sight of home still beyond the horizon, he's undeniably thinking of a number of things. The longest sleep in the softest feather bed the world has ever known. A platoon of bathing beauties who only have eyes for him. But when the idle dream has drifted, most of all, the average soldier wants simply a job. He returns armed for a civilian future with training and skills adapted to an amazing variety of civilian jobs. This man, and the 1,000-odd others of him, now return. He represents, once again, the best of America. The most capable potential group of workers the nation has ever known.
The women were laid off first, and then the less seniored black men were laid off next, and then last but not, as the time went on, finally, many of the white workers were laid off. But originally, the first ones laid off was women.
Apparently, the contract for the bomb cases had been fulfilled, and we were given notice, and the job was over.
I knew that the job would terminate when the war was over. And that's why I'd work my shift, go on down to the welding school, and I took it all. You see, just to be a welder, you don't have to take it all, but I took it all. The acetylene and, there's about 3 or 4 different kinds of welding. And I went to school after work for 4 hours, so that when I got out of there, I could get a job of welding because I really enjoyed it and I really liked it.
I know how to rivet, I know how to weld, I know how to work on an assembly line, I know how to run a dolly, to get parts out. I thought I had several skills that were, very good, and I wouldn't have any problems getting a job anywhere else.
We believed that the economy was going to burgeon, it would be splendid, we would rebuild the cities, we would do all these things, because before the war we didn't have all these skilled people. But now we had, the war would be over, it would be time to do all the good and beautiful things for America because fascism was destroyed.
All over the country in the past few months, businessmen have been buckling down to the work of research and planning how the changeover to production for peace can be accomplished without even a temporary breakdown. At the same time, government agencies are faced with the task of having to find jobs for returning veterans who are now being discharged from the services at the rate of $70,000 a month.
How do you do, Mr. Watson?
How do you do, sir?
I have all your papers here. You take this slip over to Bishop's. They need a man in the tool checking room there. I know you're qualified, and you're first.
Well, thanks a lot.
Informed industrialists believe that with the coming of peace, there will be a market for all they can produce, not only in the United States, but abroad. And perhaps more important, those undeveloped regions of Asia and Africa, to whose people war has brought new glimpses of modern industrial civilization. From these lands can come raw materials American industries already consume in vast quantities. All surveys have revealed an immense demand among the American people for consumers' goods.
The first thing I'm going to do after the war is get a vacuum cleaner and a maid to run it.
Millions of Americans, the surveys show, are waiting for a chance to buy the new products and new gadgets that they have been told will make life easier and pleasanter. Today, industrialists are resolved that all employable men and women, all homecoming veterans, shall find the post-war jobs that will secure for them their self-respect, their living, and their nation's future.
They wanted to put the women in sewing because in specifying that they had to use these sewing power machines, they knew a lot of women didn't know how to use them. And they just give you your material and say, this is what I want you to do. And they come back in a few minutes and this is all you got done. Maybe you finally manage to see what goes where. and maybe do it a little bit, then right away they'll disqualify you because, well, you'll have to wait until we get something you can do because you can't do this.
There was an ad in the paper, and I heard, too, that they were needing welders at Mare Island. So I took my card and all my credentials and everything. I went out there, and I laid my papers on the desk, and he looked at them, and he said, "It's all right." He said, "If you was a man, we'd hire you, but we can't hire you. You're a woman."
The biggest thing I felt was the fact that now I had just to go back to the field of searching for another job to make a living with no income, no nothing coming in, and you're walking the street going from place to place looking for a job.
It wasn't like a dance in an opera. The men came home beat up. The men came home with problems. They gave them free ads in the newspapers looking for jobs. It was pathetic. And we were no longer comrades in arms. We were competitors for what little there was. It was a very sharp contrast indeed, because there was a lot of money around, but it wasn't in our pockets. I sort of went to a few places, walked around, looked up names, went to the State Employment Agency, but there were no welding jobs. And then I started to walk around my own neighborhood in Brooklyn, and I went into one place where they used to do ornamental ironwork, and I guess they had war contracts. And I thought, well, maybe this was a neighborhood business that was going to continue, but they really just laughed at me. It was the same old thing. There was just, you know, being a woman, it was over for us, yes.
The family was solidly founded on the father as patriarch and breadwinner, and on the mother as cook, housekeeper, and nurse of the children. One of the trends of modern life, which has been cited as most disruptive of marriage, is the increasing economic independence of women. Today, U.S. industry is employing hundreds of women who, before the war, were homemakers, devoting their full time to their families and their family responsibilities. Everywhere, children of working parents are being left without adequate supervision or restraint. Today, the woman with a position in business equal to a successful man's is economically able to terminate her marriage if she is so minded, since she is her own breadwinner. But are such women really better off? Strongly against careers for women is Dr. Marinia Farnham, noted physician and co-author of the bestseller, Modern Woman, The Lost Sex.
Catastrophic social forces have propelled American women away from femininity and into careers at terrific cost to themselves and society. Abandoning their feminine role has made women unhappy because it has made them frustrated. It has made children unhappy because they do not have maternal love, and it has made their husbands unhappy because they do not have real women as partners. Instead, their wives have become their rivals.
They had sold us a bill of goods, they have trained us, we did what we had really been set out to do, and everything else was something that we had wished to do. There were no plans, wherever these plans are made, to keep us, and this was very clear to me by then. So I just took my next step because I was a working person, not only a welder, I was a working person, someone who had to keep working.
You have a lot of responsibility, especially a widow woman, a lone woman. My children had to be taken care of, and I'd bought a little home. It had to be paid for. I had to get a job somewhere, somehow. I knew that. So that's what I was thinking about when I left there. I got a job in a restaurant working in the kitchen. Hot, hard work, heavy lifting. It was a lot harder than working in the shipyard, and a lot less pay. I worked there 17 years in that big kitchen, 17 years to the day.
I had a daughter I had to feed. So after I couldn't get these other jobs, well, then I had to fall back on the only other thing I knew, and that was doing domestic work. And it was a very defeating thing for me, very.
I got a job in Cosgrave's department store, working as a stock girl, Well, they had black people working in the stores, but they all worked behind the scenes, in the toilets as maids, in the stock rooms as hanging up stock and keeping the stock in order, pressing and things like that. No, they didn't even have pressers.
So I went to the airport and got a job out there right back in the cafeteria. I could always get these jobs, but even though I didn't want them, but anytime there's a restaurant job or a dishwashing job or cooking job, I always felt like blacks could always get those because they saved those jobs for us.
I did mimeographing, and then they took in a new machine called dexagraphing, and that was sort of interesting. They taught me darkroom work. I liked welding better because it was a special thing. As I said, at the end of the day, I always felt I accomplished something. It was good. There was a product. There was something to be seen. If it could have been this, it would have been the same way. It would have been better if it had not been for the war. All I really wanted was one day to make a very beautiful ornamental gate. That was something I wanted to do. I still think about it when I pass a beautiful gate. I say, was that so much to want?